Some children never get to be children. This is not a metaphor, it's a painful reality. Some children carry burdens they were never meant to bear. Instead of being protected, they become the protectors. From the outside, no one sees anything wrong. Quite the opposite. Such a mature child, they say. So wise for their age. They are praised, admired. But no one asks the real question. Why does a child have to be this mature? Growing up early is not a virtue. It's never a choice. It's a survival mechanism. Maybe you know a child like this. Or maybe that child was you. At 8, carrying your mother's sorrow. At 10, worrying about the bills. At 12, becoming a parent to your brothers and sisters. You look strong to everyone else, but inside something had broken long ago. Too early and very, very quietly. For example, Vera was only 9 years old. She was a little girl really. But she didn't feel small, because her mother was sick. Her father was working. She had 2 siblings at home. That's why Vera grew up quietly. Mornings always started the same way. Before dawn, the house was so quiet that Vera could hear her own breathing. Getting out of bed and pushing away the warmth of the blanket had become a familiar struggle. When she stepped into the kitchen, she saw the delicate frost flowers on the window panes. The cold sank into her skin. Even through her socks, her small feet felt the icy tiles. She dragged the stool up to the counter and managed her tasks that way. Her hands reached for the teapot. The teapot was too heavy for her small hands, but she didn't let go. Her siblings would wake up soon. They would be hungry, and she had to be ready. Sometimes she carried worries like this. What if I woke up late? What if I can't get everything done? And she answered herself the same way every time. I have to manage. She lined up the glasses and poured the tea. She prepared breakfast. No one knew the weight a 7-year-old carried in that small kitchen at that early hour. After school, she helped her siblings with homework. Sitting at the table, her legs dangled in the air. They still didn't reach the floor. Still, as she searched for mistakes in her siblings' notebook, she tried to look serious, like a teacher, like she wasn't a child too. In the evenings, she sat quietly beside her mother. Sometimes her mother stared out the window. Her eyes drifted far away. Vera learned to read that look. It meant, be quiet. Those moments put a weight on Vera's chest, like a bird that couldn't fit inside a tiny cage. It flapped, but it couldn't get out. Her mother said nothing, but Vera knew. If she wasn't quiet, her mother would be even more upset. Her teacher loved Vera. So responsible, the teacher would say. She gave Vera as an example in class. But Vera didn't like the word responsibility. Because it wasn't responsibility. It was fear. It was obligation. The fear of what would happen if she didn't do it. At night, sometimes she listened to her siblings breathing as they slept. They were small. They had no idea. Sometimes Vera envied them, because they were still children. Then she felt guilty for it. And Vera grew up, but she never got to be a child. One trait of these children is this: they never learn how to need, because needing feels dangerous. If you need something, it might not be met. So the safer option is to not need at all, to expect nothing. Over time, this child becomes self-sufficient. At 7, she braids her own hair. Her head hurts as she drags the comb through Her hands get tired, but she does it because she can't disturb her mother. Her mother is already tired. At 9, she cooks her own food. The counter is too high. She's afraid of the flame on the stove. Still she does it because no one else will. At 10, she solves her problems by herself. When something happens at school, she doesn't talk about it at home. What would change anyway? Her mother is already busy with her own troubles. Her father is already tired. They don't have the energy to listen. Everyone who sees her admires her, so smart. But this isn't being smart, it's loneliness learned too early. What's normal is for a child to need. A baby cries because it needs something. A child runs to their mother because they need love. But the child who grows up too early, they silence their needs. They learn to live as if they have none, as if needing someone is a weakness. And then one day, as an adult, they have forgotten how to need. Someone asks, "Do you want help?" And automatically they say, "No, thank you, I'll handle it." Do they handle it? Maybe, maybe not. But asking for help feels like their strength will crack. Like breaking the only rule they learned as a child. The rule is simple: don't be a burden. Early matured children often keep the emotional balance of the home. When their mother cries, they listen quietly, carefully. They count the tears. They notice the tremble in her voice. Is today a day to talk or a day to stay quiet? When their father gets angry, they become the mediator. When the voice rises, their chest tightens, heart racing, hands sweating. But they don't show it. They try to look calm, because if they aren't calm, the problems will grow. When siblings fight, they step in and make peace. They split the toys, they decide who is right, like a referee. Like they aren't the same age at all. This child is always smelling the air at home, because their life depends on it. In the morning, the first thing they do is listen to the house. Is it silence or is a storm coming? How is my mom today? How is my dad today? And the whole strategy is built around that. They read their mother's mood from how she sets the plates at breakfast, fast or slow. They measure their father's anger by the way he closes the door, hard or gently. In time, it becomes a skill. Reading faces, tone, gaze, silence. But the skill has a cost, because constantly reading others means forgetting yourself. This child knows what their mother feels, but they don't know what they feel. Years later, someone asks, "What do you want?" But they can't answer, because they never asked themselves. Because their own wants never mattered. What mattered were other people's wants. They never wanted anything beyond peace. When Vera finished high school, she went to university. She got into a good program. She became her family's pride. Everyone congratulated her, but inside her, there was a huge emptiness, because all her life she lived for others, for her mother, her siblings, her family. Now her own life was beginning, but it felt unfamiliar. She had a room in the dorm, for the first time a room of her own. When she closed the door, no one came in. No one needed her. No one expected anything from her. That was freedom. But Vera didn't feel free. She felt lost. At night, the ceiling was white. She stared at it for hours. She couldn't sleep, because a voice inside asked, "What do I do now?" While her friends were having fun, she couldn't relax. In the cafe, everyone talked and laughed. Vera tried to smile too, but the smile felt pasted onto her face, like a mask. A voice inside said, "What are you doing here? Do they really want to be friends with you?" When someone offered help, she froze. For a second, it felt like her mind stopped. Help? Me? She couldn't accept it. No, I'll handle it, she said. Then she walked away, almost like she was escaping. Because what if she accepted? She might feel indebted. She might have to do something in return. When someone loved her, she couldn't believe it. When a man showed interest, suspicion came first. What does he want from me? She thought. Does he really love me, or does he have another motive? Because Vera felt valuable only when she was useful, not just for being herself. One day, she gave a presentation in class. She had worked hard. The presentation was great, everyone applauded. Her professor congratulated her, but Vera felt only a muted, bitter happiness. At home, she looked in the mirror and asked, "Why am I not happy?" She knew the answer. This success wasn't for her. It was to make her family proud, to please the professor, to prove herself, but she wasn't doing anything for herself, because she didn't know how. This went on for years, until one day in a cafe, she saw a little girl. The girl was telling her mother something. A drawing was in her hand. The paper was crumpled. The colors had run into each other, but the girl was so excited. Her eyes were shining. "Mom, look, she said. "I made you a drawing." Her mother put down the phone. She turned to the girl. She took the drawing. She looked at it. Then she smiled. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," she said. That was all, but the girl looked as happy as she'd won the world. Watching her, Vera felt something. First a small sting. Then it grew, tightened her chest, knotted her throat. Her eyes filled with tears, because it had never been like that for her. She had never spoken like that. Her mother had never looked at her like that, never made her feel it truly. When she showed her drawings, her mother said, "Not now. I'll look later." But later never came, and little Vera folded the drawing quietly. She put it in her drawer. She never took it out again. After a while, she convinced herself it was silly and stopped showing them. Sitting there watching the girl, Vera realized something for the first time. She saw something she had lost. Her childhood. Her childhood was like an unopened gift, forgotten on a dusty shelf, ribbon faded, paper torn. Too far away now, like it sat on the highest shelf, out of reach. Another trait of the child who grows up too early: they always look strong, but inside they are fragile, because that strength is armor built layer by layer over years. Under it, a child who was never protected hides, not unloved, loved conditionally. And the child learns love is earned, not by simply existing, by doing something. Love becomes a reward, something to work for, something you get by deserving it. That lesson follows them into adulthood, and the adult keeps working, keeps giving, keeps trying to be useful, as if stopping would mean disappearing, because stopping feels like not being loved. Vera was the same at work. She accepted every job. Even after hours, she stayed. Even if she had something at home, she said, "Okay, I'll handle it." One day, her boss gave her another task. It was 6 p.m. Vera had an appointment, but she couldn't say, "I can't." "Okay, I'll handle it," she said. She cancelled her appointment. She stayed at the office. Everyone left. The lights went out. Only the lamp on Vera's desk was on. Staring at the screen, she felt her eyes burn. Why, she asked herself. Why can't I say no? She knew the answer, because no meant losing the job. And losing the job meant being worthless. Worthless, that was the biggest fear. One day, Vera was walking. She saw a small child on the street. The child was crying. They had hurt their knee. The father came right over, bent down, and lifted the child into his arms. "It's okay, I'm here," he said. "Does it hurt? Show me." The child was sobbing. The father kissed the scraped knee. "Look, I kissed it. It will pass now," he said, and the child was calm in the father's arms. Still crying, but safe. Vera stopped and watched. She stood there as if her feet were nailed to the ground, and in that moment she understood something. The child did nothing, just cried, just hurt, and still the child was loved, still held, because being there was enough. Vera had never felt that. She always had to do something. When she cried, they said, "Don't cry." When she hurt, they said, "Be tough." When she was scared, they said, "Don't be scared." So she endured. She didn't cry, she didn't fear, because she had no other choice. But there on that street, watching a father hold a child, something inside her collapsed, like a dam finally cracking into a flood, and she cried silently. On the street, in a corner, no one noticed. Because for the first time she understood what she had missed. She had missed love, unconditional love, being loved simply for existing. She covered her face with her hands. Her shoulders trembled. Tears slapped between her fingers. But she made no sound, because long ago she learned to cry quietly without disturbing anyone. When these children become adults, they usually end up in one of two places. First, they try to control everything, because control feels like safety. As a child, they had no control. Now they don't want to miss anything. They plan everything. They calculate every possibility. If something goes wrong, they panic. Because when control slips, that little child comes back, helpless, weak, afraid. Second, they burn out completely. They can't carry it anymore. They collapse. They don't want to get up in the morning. Everything feels heavy, even breathing. In both cases, it's the same loss, the loss of a childhood that was never lived. But it's an invisible loss, because from the outside, everything looks normal. You are not saying your family didn't love you. You are saying you couldn't be a child. And that's hard to explain, because there isn't one big event. There isn't one clear trauma. There is an absence. The absence of what should have been. How do you say it? You can't say, "My mother didn't care," because she did. She was just tired. You can't say, "My father didn't love me," because he did. He was just busy. And still, something was missing, and that missing piece hurts you from the inside, little by little. After a while, Vera realized she had never shown herself any tenderness. When she made a mistake, she judged herself harshly. The voice inside spoke so sharply. When she was tired, she didn't allow herself to rest. She had made work and self-sacrifice sacred. There was no room to question it. Just a little more, she kept telling herself. Work a little more, then you will rest. But then never came, because there was always something else, always a new responsibility, a new task. Because as a child, she had no room to make mistakes, no right to be tired. She had to be strong. And now she is an adult, but that little girl was still inside her. still trying to be strong, still carrying the weight. One day Vera looked into the mirror and she truly saw herself, the bruised darkness under her eyes, the tiredness on her face, the way her shoulders had dropped. "I'm so tired," she whispered. And she thought of her younger self, that 9-year-old girl, the one making tea in the cold kitchen, wrists trembling under the teapot's weight. What would she say to her now? Maybe this: "You have done enough. You have carried enough. You can let go now." In the mirror, Vera's eyes filled, because that little girl had never heard words like that. No one ever told her, "You are enough just as you are." The hardest thing for the early grown child to learn: saying no. Because no feels like rejection, and rejection feels like being alone. And they say yes to everything, carry everything, even when exhausted. The phone rings, a friend asks for a small favor. Vera is tired. She doesn't want to, but the word no gets stuck in her throat. It won't come out. "Okay," she says, "I'll handle it." After hanging up, she sits on the bed. She puts her head in her hands. "Why?" she says. "Why couldn't I say no?" Because if she says no, maybe she loses that person. Maybe they get angry. Maybe they think she's only there for the good days. Maybe they never call again. Being alone, that's the unbearable part. One day, maybe she realizes no is not loss. No is self-protection. No is a boundary. Maybe for the first time she values her own needs. Maybe for the first time she says, "I matter too." It sounds simple, but for the early grown child, it's a revolution, because all their life others mattered, and they treated themselves as nothing. Vera is 30 now, still strong, still responsible, just different now, because now she knows that little girl didn't have to be this strong. She simply deserved to be loved. One morning she woke up and didn't get up early like always. She stayed in bed. She watched the light from the window and listened to the birds. The voice inside said, "Get up, there's work to do." But for the first time she answered, "No, today I'm making time for myself." When she got up, she made coffee and drank it slowly. She enjoyed it. She didn't do anything for anyone. In that moment, it was just her. It was small, but for Vera, it was a revolution, because for the first time, she put her needs first. And the best part is this: she can give herself that love now. Not perfectly, sometimes she forgets, sometimes she slips back. When a friend asks for help, her first instinct is still to say yes. But now she stops. She takes a breath, she thinks, and she asks herself, "Do I actually want to do this?" Sometimes it's yes, sometimes it's no. But it's not automatic anymore. It's a choice. Slowly, she is learning to listen to her own voice, to see her needs, to accept her pain. One evening, she went back to that cafe. She sat in the same corner. She looked around. There were families, there were children. And she left. She wasn't just a woman carrying burdens anymore. She was an adult, holding the hand of the little girl inside her. Maybe she couldn't change the past, but the future belonged to her now. Because as long as we are breathing, it's not too late. It's time to start giving yourself the love you didn't receive as a child.